What's the cost of not doing this? If the senior's in the house and the wood is rotting and there's water, faucets leaking and all this, the smoke detectors don't work. Like over time, what is the cost of not addressing these issues when early on?
That $50 leak now turns into a $15,000 water and mold remediation because you didn't have somebody coming in and checking those over time. Rug that's on the floor that's peeled up, you have a slip and fall or a tripping hazard. That now you've got a $40,000 hip replacement. Everybody responds and prematurely pushes you into assisted living because you didn't have a system set up in place. Now you're paying $54,000 to $90,000 a year, and you're taking the wealth out of your family because that money that could have been in the stock market or still been in a money market account or something like that, you're robbing your family of wealth.
Hey everybody, it's Melanie Thomas here with you on the latest episode of the A.S.P.I.R.E podcast, Ask Smart People in Real Estate. So my smart person in real estate today is none other than Miss Fee Gentry, who has started a new company called Handled Home Solutions, which is helping seniors do what they call age in place. So I want to know what's that all about. Myself as a Gen Xer, I'm curious about what that means for me in the future. And as a child of an aging parent myself, I am very much impacted by this whole kind of shift in the population and demographics right now. And so with no further ado, I'm going to introduce the founder and CEO of Handled Home Solutions, Miss Fee Gentry. Please join me in the A.S.P.I.R.E podcast studio today. How are you, ma'am?
I'm great. How are you, Melzy?
I am well. I know we have worked together in many different entities before. We both are real estate professionals, and that's a big part of your background as well. And so we're going to tie this actually into how this impacts the real estate industry overall. So I definitely have some questions for you. But first and foremost, as we all get older, you and I are both Gen Xers. I think we're born the same year, actually. So what should we be expecting? We hear this term, I've heard you talk about it, the silver tsunami. What does that mean? What's going to happen as we age and we're living in these homes? We have these so many big single family homes, residences. What does it mean? Are we all going to go into assisted living? Are we staying home? What's the future look like to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really glad to be here with you today. And I hope that I can bring some value to your audience about the term aging in place. So we'll start with that. Aging in place is a big, word that people hear about, or a trendy word that people have heard about. Well, simply defined, aging in place means that people over the age of 65 have a preference. So 80% plus 90% of seniors over the age of 65 want to stay in their existing home and not be forced to go to skilled nursing, assisted living, etc. They rather stay in the homes that they're comfortable with and familiar with. The term silver tsunami represents a group of baby boomers and what we call the greatest generation. So these are people at 65 and older who represent the largest transfer of wealth in this country. We're talking about $68 trillion, and they're going to do that in the form of real estate, their businesses, and other assets. Is going to be transferring over the next 25 years. And so when this silver tsunami, and what it is America is not ready for the silver tsunami. And and that's what I'm here to tell everybody about. So this isn't just a business, Melanie. This is a calling for me. It is a life's mission, and it's a culmination of all the things that I've done over the last 30 years of my life, from rehabilitation, wellness, my businesses, real estate, and like you said, we're Gen Xers. I'm taking care of 3 of my parents and 2 of my adult cousins who are over the age of 65. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, definitely. Because I guess all that background helps you kind of crystallizes everything. You take pieces of your experience and put it all into this one effort here. But yeah, because when we hear the term tsunami, so we think of this overwhelming wave that, crushes everything in its path. So is it something that we should be concerned about? Like what's the danger ahead if we're looking at it like how a tsunami would affect a community?
Right. Well, what it means is if we do not pay attention to the silver tsunami, what the implications are, we will have 73 million people who will be living either at home or in skilled facilities. So what it means is it puts a huge economic pressure on our local and state and national governments. It puts a huge constraint on our social infrastructure, because we will have people suffering, dying, not taking, people in our society who are the people who have taken care of us, not thriving. And then what it also means in the bigger picture is that the wealth that they have amassed will be going back to the big guys, the big rich guys again. So the mortgage that they just got through paying off, over the 30 years that they paid off at the bank with Barclays and all these other big, was it BlackRock and all these other companies, they are now the big private equity firms that are buying and investing in assisted living and death insurance, and you're just going to be giving your money back to them, as opposed to putting it back into and transfer that wealth into our families. Those are the economic implications and the social implications if we do not take care of this problem. And I think I was telling you before we started this, this podcast, that there are not enough of us Gen Xers and millennials to take care of the 33 million seniors who are turning, 65 years or older. There are not enough of us to take care of that generation. Even if builders were to start building right now with skilled nursing facilities and or assisted living facilities, it's unsustainable. There's just not enough of us to take care of them.
Can't keep up with the
pace,
right?
With the pace.
So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about aging in place? So, we probably all remember those old commercials with the lady who fell and can't get up, right? I shouldn't laugh, but we all remember that, right?
Right.
And then that was like in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
How old is that commercial? I don't even know now.
Yeah.
And then, or I think of somebody with a chairlift on the stairs or something like, but is that kind of the extreme? Like what are some of the misconceptions that people, when they think of aging in place, does it have to be to that level, or are there things like more basic that seniors can do to kind of make their homes, shore them up to make sure that they can live there safely?
Yeah, the biggest misconception, and there are many, right? But one of the biggest misconceptions is that aging in place is just a housing preference. It's about staying in their home. It's really more so about a system of staying in the home, the quality of life. It's about the home and the human. And so that's one of the things. It's not just about installing grab bars. It's not just because, the home is paid off and everything's there, everything's all hunky, funky, hunky and gloryful. And it's not automatically about moving is safer. It's about having a plan and a system that, like I said, that supports both the human and the home. I think that needs to be said. A.R.P. found that 44% of older adults feel like it's inevitable for them to go to an assisted living. And that's a false choice that the media has portrayed, that we have, cross your fingers and pray that nothing happens, like hope mom doesn't fall or dad doesn't trip. And then the other false choice narrative is like, but you got to get them an assisted living, send them to this country club at $4,500 to $9,000 a month. And so that's those are the biggest myths and misconceptions about aging in place.
All right, because when I think of assisted living, nowadays, like you just said, it's almost like this resort style. So it's like, well, if I was still able to drive myself and do all this, like, why would I want to leave my home? I mean, I suppose there's reasons why people might, but I would think that given a choice, most people would rather stay where they are if they could maintain their home the way they are. So if someone's thinking about that, we're not at that age. I'm not at that age yet, but if I was looking 20 years into the future, what should I be thinking about as I look around the house that I live in, as a person who is, fully independent right now?
Right. So you should be thinking about not just beyond the home, but also about your physical abilities. Like, how's your vision? How's your hearing? How's your mobility?
The vision's pretty bad.
Yeah, right. What's the yes, what is the condition of your home? Is it caught up to today's standards? Does it have the latest, smart technology to be able to facilitate and assist me staying in my home? Do I have all the things, again, a system, a support system? Who lives around me? Am I close to, am I in a good area that where services can get to me for in case of an emergency or hospitalization, am I close to family? So those are the things that we should be thinking about all the time, as we not all the time, but as we get closer to aging in place or with our parents. Yeah.
Okay, so like, what are the most? We talked about falls. That's obviously a huge thing, right? But what are the most common safety risks that you see in homes that were not designed necessarily for, you know, I hate to say senior proof because that
Uh-huh.
makes it,
No, that's
you know
what
what I
we
mean?
saw.
Like, what are the most common risk factors that you could
Yeah.
address?
We need to, and this is one risk factor that people don't pay attention to. The number one cause of people leaving their home early is usually falls, right? We have 3 million ER visits a year.
Wow,
3
3 million?
billion ER visits per year. So that alone costs the US, $50 billion a year just in falls. And so the number one danger zone, people think, yes, people think you're going to fall in your parking lot or in the grocery stores and all that. The number one place that people fall and the most dangerous place is inside their own home. Their threat, and it's number one is bathroom. Second place after that is your stairs, right? And it's not people, and people are falling, they're falling down the stairs, obviously not up. They're entryways into your house because it's usually poorly lit. Exterior walkways, like outside in your backyard, in your garage, nighttime. What we call the risk corridor is from your bedroom to the hallway to the kitchen. We call it the risk corridor, those risk corridors, because you got loose rugs and all that. And clutter and trip hazards. Why is it that we put, as we get older, people put magazines on the floor and have extension cords and
Mm-hmm.
dogs and cat bowls, litter boxes and like all kinds of stuff, and then low seating and difficulty getting up. Those are the biggest hazards that we should be paying attention to.
So what would be like, give me like top three modifications. Obviously, of course, you could remove tripping hazards like rugs or magazine racks on the floor, something that would trip you in the dark. But are there like some simple, easy modifications anyone could do to try to avoid the risk of trips and falls and things like that?
Absolutely. We actually have a checklist. So if people want it after this show, but we have a checklist in the top three. If I were just going off the top of my head, number one, let's start with the bathroom, right? Because I think the bathroom safety upgrades, if you don't have grab bars, I think that's the most important thing. The second thing is raised toilet seat support. Then in your bedroom, making sure, and shower seating is important. Your bed, making sure your bed rises, is like your bed height. You might not even have like an adjustable bed, but making sure your bed height is comfortable because people fall out of their bed more
Yeah, I
than
would imagine like that could be pretty harmful if you have one of those high, beds that you
yeah.
take a fall
Yeah.
2, 3 feet to the ground.
Yeah, and then the second thing I would say, stair and transfer support. So making sure if you're coming downstairs or if you're transferring yourself from your couch to, because a lot of people they'll grab onto the the living room table. So it's the transport support. And then third would definitely has to be lighting and visibility. Sensor motion detectors when you're walking from your dark bedroom to the kitchen to make sure, lights turn on, adjust at like feet level. I think those are the three top
Right,
things.
like
Key things,
have the
yeah.
floor like Michael Jackson, Billie Jean style. Did you take a
Yeah,
step?
yeah,
The
yeah,
floor lights
yeah,
up. Right, that'd be pretty.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
how my house would be.
yeah.
But seriously, you have background. When you were doing real estate full time, you did a lot of new construction
Yeah.
stuff, right? So do you think that builders and developers are thinking like you right now? Are they making? Are you seeing homes being built with this in mind now, or are they kind of like behind the curve? Where do you
No.
see that
Um,
whole
the big
sector?
builders, and that's a great question because builders already know, they know the economics, right? They know that the wealth, they follow the trends, so they know that the transfer of wealth and seniors are going to need aging in place. So that's why you're looking at so many senior communities. I live in Houston, Texas, but I lived in Austin, Texas, which is Sun City. So I lived exactly 3 miles from Sun City and sold, several probably at least 100 homes in the Georgetown region of just seniors only, at least over 100 probably. And the thing that they're thinking about has been with those things in mind, with soft touch drawers, how they design the kitchen with the drawers and pots and cabinets coming in and out. They're building single unit homes now as opposed single story homes as opposed to the two-story homes. So they're just building on a larger platform. They have thresholds. If you see the homes now, they have the non-slip flooring, so
Yeah.
safe non-slip flooring that they're building with. They're building with motion sensors. They're building what I liked. What's the name of that builder? A couple of builders were doing really neat things in terms of putting they're wiring the houses for sensing, for monitoring in the home, so that you can have smart homes attached to Alexa and to other monitoring devices in the home. So I thought that was really good. And then HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, has grants and programs for these builders to build homes for aging in place, right? And I know you're in Florida, so Florida, Georgia,
We have
California.
a few old people here.
Yeah. So they are showing that they are giving people like even grants, like a $5,000 grant to help builders and or other rehab.
Right. So is that can individuals because how expensive is this really if you're thinking about like, oh, if a person said, oh man, I have a two-story home I've lived in for 30 years. I have to retrofit both first, second floor, every room, every bathroom. What is the cost of that in comparison to what someone would pay to just go to an assisted living? Like, is it cancel each other out? Like, what would it cost, and would it make sense? Would it be cost effective to try to just make the home as safe as possible, as opposed to just kind of giving up and saying, hey, this is too much for me to handle?
Right. There's always a cost and a trade-off, right? But to retrofit a home, in my mind, right, and basically what other experts have said is retrofitting the home is way less expensive. To retrofit a bathroom, and we're talking about opening up doorways, putting out flooring, upgrading bathrooms, all of that stuff. I mean, a bathroom can go anywhere. I just talked to a gentleman last week. A bathroom could be as little as 1,100, but it could be up, depending on the size and the scope of the house and the materials that are used. It might be up to 16,000 or 20,000 to upgrade a bathroom, to retrofit a bathroom. It just depends. But to think about this, the average cost of living for an assisted living, and this is just the basics, right? Assisted living is $4,500 a month basic, and then you start going to, and that's lower mid, like a mid-tier kind of lower level assisted living facility. They go all the way up to 14, 15, 16,000, not including medication, dispensary or food, upgraded food plans and all that stuff. So you're talking anywhere from, let's say, $54,000 a year to over $100,000 a year. Let's say it cost $100,000, and we're saying a year. That's a year for assisted living. A year. Let's say you paid a one-time to get your whole home retrofitted. That cost is just completely like you've paid. You've done it in one year. You get your return on investment in 1 year.
Right, yeah, I guess when you look at it that way, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bargain. Yeah.
Absolutely. So are there situations though, devil's advocate here, where it is just better to not try to, to give up the ghost and just say, hey, you know what? Gave it the old college try. I need to relocate. I just can't sustain the maintenance on this home, or it's just not safe. Where is that line for most people, and where you would say, okay, it's probably time to go to another facility?
Right. Always, right? It's always based upon, talk about the human in the home. And so, yes, sometimes the home has become so deferred or so overwhelming for people that they just can't manage it, right, themselves, or they may not have the cost, the money to safely to retrofit or manage in the home. But here's the biggest thing. It's usually the physical and or the mental capacity of the senior in the home. I don't care how much you retrofit or take care of a home. If that senior does not have the cognitive or physical ability to do so, it's dangerous, and you have to consider moving into another facility unless you bring somebody in the home full time to take care of them. So I always have an answer that yes, there's always a way for people to stay in their home safely and might be so independently, but at least safely if they have someone who can have 24-hour a day care in the home.
Gotcha. All right, so let's. I like to tell people to put on a different hat. So since you've worn different hats, so put your real estate hat on for me now, and look long term. If we have a tsunami of seniors who are staying at home as opposed to going into nursing homes or for assisted living, whatever it might be. Do you think that that would cause kind of like a logjam in market inventory if there's that many of them out there as you described? Would that keep that pressure on the real estate market where those homes are not going to be going through the normal flow where they're leaving and others move up buyers or first time buyers are coming in? Do you see that as a problem of any sort in the real estate industry as far as inventory goes, if seniors are just kind of, if everyone's staying in their homes for decades more than what they used to?
You're seeing it now, Melanie. That's what we're experiencing. Part of this housing crisis of sorts that we're having is not just about interest rates. It's about inventory. We're short 4 million homes in this country. One of the things, yes, we've got higher interest rates, but two, COVID showed that seniors are like, we're trying to stay in our own homes. We're not trying to go to facilities, right? And so, like I told you this earlier, if builders start building assisted living facilities or skilled nursing facilities, they wouldn't be able to build for the demand of seniors right now. If they started today for the next 10 to 15 years, there's just no way, because we have 10,000 seniors turning 65 every single day. So that's one of the things. The other part of it, yeah, so when you have that many people going, and then, like you said, I mean, it's just, it just doesn't make dollars and cents. Also, like, so yeah, it puts the pressure. So that's what's keeping those houses, the prices up, because there's such a demand, because people aren't leaving out of their homes. There's only, what, 490,000 homes in the market right now, or how many sold last year, something like one of the lowest numbers ever in the U.S. history. And we've watched that for like the last 2 years now, where people aren't moving as much. It used to be, I think when I was selling, they said people moved every 5 to 7 years. Now that people had those great interest rates, and they
Yeah,
have like, and
they're
those
locked in.
they bought at the top of the market, and
Right.
the houses aren't, the increasing in value. They're like, I think we're gonna be here like 10 years, like 10 to 12 years. I mean, and we're gonna watch that. Yeah, we're gonna watch that continue to
Right.
happen. And we have super agers. When you have people who are living to, instead of, people used to die at 65, 67. Now we got super agers. People are living 95 to 100. We're going to see that that impact on inventory, housing inventory.
Yeah. So we talked about Gen Xers earlier. So as a Gen Xer, personally, myself, we're at that age. We're almost considered. Well, I guess if you're past 55, you are technically a senior, right? but we're looking at our own futures, while also most of our parents that are still living are in their 70s and 80s, and in a place where we are, and I'm going through this personally right now. You start to have to take on that role of caregiver, or at least looking at, how to manage what's going on as your parents are starting to age and lose some of the independence that they had. So, what are you seeing? Like, the people who you talk to, are you talking mostly to the seniors themselves, or are you getting, contacted by actual family members who are struggling with this and trying to find just a pathway to just circle the square to keep their parents happy and maintain their dignity and independence, but also relieve themselves of, I don't want to call it a burden, but sometimes it can feel that way, right? What do you see? Tell me what your experience has been, when people come to you in need of this service. Where are they typically at when they contact you?
So that's a great question. We have been, we get calls on different platforms, right? So we get we get phone calls from just local outbound marketing, right? Inbound marketing with churches, faith, communities of faith. And then we run ads. So on social media, YouTube, and these people are coming from all over the country. So the typical that we've been seeing, which I thought was interesting, we target specifically adult children between the ages of 30 to 60. And typically, about what we're looking at, our data shows that about 70% are first, the oldest daughters, or like a daughter or son who lives locally, or usually out of state, or a son who lives out of state. So that's what we're seeing. And then we have the seniors themselves contacting us. And like you said, and these are adult children of seniors, and we are still working our own careers. We're taking care of our children still, or our grandchildren, and now we're taking on the task of taking care of our older aging parents and aunts, uncles, cousins, family members. It's not even just those of us. We're not even just taking care of our mom and dad anymore. We're taking care of Aunt Mary, Uncle John. We're taking care of everybody, and that's what we're finding is unsustainable. And so when people contact us, they're contacting us sometimes out of a crisis and sometimes just out of a worry. Over Christmas and Thanksgiving, we have people saying, when I was home, I noticed mom burned, the turkey, or there was a lot of clutter, or dad wasn't moving so much, or there's a lot of deferred maintenance around the house. So that's when people start contacting us about like our home safety assessment. For example, like, could we get somebody in the house that looks kind of messy and there's old food in the refrigerator? Like just little
Yeah.
hints that we're seeing. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask, like, as a child of an aging parent, like, what signs should you be looking for if you don't see your parent all the time? Like, what would you see that, this seems a little off? Like, what are the warning signs? Because sometimes the parent's gonna try to hide it, or may not even be realizing that something is changing. So give me a couple of warning signs that people should look out for, where
Yeah.
they may want to reach out to someone and say, hey, you know what, I think we need to look at maybe getting some help in here.
Yeah, the biggest things that we always say, first of all, look at the house, right? Start from the exterior part of the house. If you know mom and dad have always kept a meticulous yard, start looking at those signs there. When you walk in the house, there's funny odors that will your nose never defiles you, and you start seeing old food or deferred maintenance, tripping hazards. If mom and dad say they're fine, or like I said, that simple idea of like they're burning the food, or you're seeing their responses are a little bit slower, they're moving a little bit slower, they're holding on to furniture. If you see them rocking, if that the
See that?
telltale
Yeah.
sign, if they're
Yeah.
rocking 2 to 3 times to get out of a chair and pulling on furniture to get up, those are your signs. Unusual bruising on them where they may have slipped and fallen and said, "Oh, I was so clumsy and I fell." Those are some of the telltale signs. They're slower in their speech, their response, and just like you said, paying attention. Like I said, we go through this assessment where we can look at people physically, and look at them and based on their answers, kind of tell if it's the human or if it's the home or a combination of both.
Gotcha. So, as an adult child of an aging parent, how do you recommend that people obviously want to be cognizant of an adult person's independence and, the fear that comes along with losing some of that, while you still have to say, hey, I need to step in, we need to do something? It's almost like an intervention sometimes, right? But what's the right balance that you think people should strike when they're trying to protect their loved one, but also maintain that person's independence and their agency to take care of themselves and make their own decisions and, about what's best for them?
That's a great one. It's a delicate balance because I struggle with this with my own parents, right? Even to this day, and I do this for pretty much full time, and it is striking that conversation of talking to them about these are like mom or dad or Aunt Susie. These are the things that I'm noticing, or just ask them questions about just have a adult open conversation about it. We have to start having these hard conversations in America about this, and lots of times it'll be too late. We should have probably had the conversation 10 years ago. Like it's kind of like a prenuptial, right? Like before you get
Yeah.
married, right? We should have had these conversations 10 years ago. However, when's the next best time to have that conversation? It's kind of like buying a house, right? When's the best time to buy a house? Now, but okay, 10 years ago, but now is the best time. It's the exact same thing. Let's have a decent, decent, respectful conversation, and don't push them when they're uncomfortable. And if they're resistant, you already know that they already know those. And a lot of times, when we talk to the seniors, they already know that the house is getting out of control. They already know that their memory is lacking, and they become defensive about it. And the third thing is, I would get a third party, right? Have a third disinterested party intervene, whether it's a social worker, occupational therapist, like someone, a doctor, to just talk to them. Because for some, our generation, they listen to doctors. like,
They sure do.
yeah, they
Yeah.
listen to doctors, and they'll listen to their clergy. They'll listen to men and women of faith for them. That'll also, if they belong to like a senior ministry at their church or a senior group or something like that, or a trusted friend. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right though. It definitely is it's a hard conversation, right? Because nobody wants to kind of face the reality or the mortality potentially that, getting closer to all of that. So it's definitely our conversation, but a necessary one, right? Because you don't want it to have to come from a crisis. You want to have the planning. Like you said, people probably wish they had planned it. Should people be thinking about this as part of their estate planning?
Absolutely. What's funny, I did a podcast about this with an estate planner, probably 2 weeks ago, and she said the exact same thing. Like, it should be a part of their estate planning, right? So we should be having these conversations as part of a state, because nobody's getting out of here alive. Like, we all think we all think that we're gonna live forever, but none of us. The truth is, none of us are gonna get out of here alive. We're not taking our houses with us, and we're not taking the people we love. So the best and the kindest things that we can do as family members, on both sides, the greatest gift that we can give to our parents is honoring their wishes in the last years of their life. And the best gift that our adult parent and that our aging parents can give us is clarity, direction, with their wisdom, and to pass on their memories and their wishes that are in a clear way that take that pressure off. Like, parents keep saying that they don't want to be a burden on us. Well, one of the ways that they can unburden us is by having those adult conversations and just giving us all the information that we would like, and answer the questions that we like, and help us help you is the best way. That's it, and that's one of the things that we do is we help families with those conversations.
So, from a business perspective, do you see Handled Home Solutions as a competitor to assisted living, or do you actually partner with these places, knowing that sometimes there may be people who need that as an option? Like, how do you position yourself, either with or against those corporate companies or the assisted living facilities that are maybe competing for the same customer?
Right. We consider ourselves a platform. So we're not just a service. We're considered a platform that talks about, like, we educate on aging in place. We provide alternatives to just crossing your fingers and hoping that nothing happens. And we also are an alternative to prematurely putting people in assisted living, because we found out that the statistics say, and it's not me, the statistics show that the average person on assisted living only stays there 22 months, and about 60% of them regret that they even went in. And so remember, when you go to assisted living, you go to a small room, like 1 or 2 bedroom unit. You're eating institutional food. You don't have your memories, your family, your friends around you. And so some people, they're okay and they can thrive in that environment. Most do not. And so, my own, bonus dad, he only lived, like they said, 22 months. Like, literally, he lived 22 months to the day, because even though we went to go visit him, he started losing his independence. He lost his speech because he became, people don't understand how small your world becomes, even in those facilities. Because yes, the fact of the matter is that it is not your home, and there's something different about whether your house is a 1-bedroom, flat in the Bronx somewhere versus in a palatial estate. It's still your home, and there's an energetic vibe and social well-being about, there's something said about being in your home.
Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, I don't know if there's any scientific stats on it, but you do see a lot. I know I personally and anecdotally know, I have heard a lot of my friends say that once the person went into the facility, it kind of just accelerated. Everything just changed. And yeah, I guess being at home has psychological, emotional benefits.
It does.
That can't be measured. So, as I'm a real estate professional, as are you, and were you before. So, as a real estate professional, what do you think that we should be doing to have these conversations with our clients, right? We always say, okay, my customer is a customer for life. So I might have sold you a house when you were 30 and your kids were in elementary school, and then I sold you your second house, and now you're an empty nester, and now you're in your 50s and 60s. Should real estate agents be having these conversations, or as they kind of nurture their sphere of influence, to say, hey, just checking in on you, these are the things you might want to consider as the home gets older, or anything like that? What would your advice be to them, to how to stay connected in this topic with them?
Melanie, you're speaking my language. This is one of the reasons why I developed Handled Home Solutions, because as a real estate professional, like I said, we go through these life cycles with people. And so we should absolutely be one of the people on the forefront of having these conversations with our clients and their families, right? We should be communicating it through newsletters, through videos, through in person. These are ways that we can reach out and keep in contact with that person, because the things that we can help them with is to talk, put them in contact with people to help retrofit their home, put them in contact with if they're starting to decline, mentally or physically, to put them, if they have to go to, like in-home care for, in-home care company, or even assisted living, right? Or a skilled nursing facility. We should always have those honest conversations with our clients, quote, for life. Yeah. So I think it's important. And I think real estate professionals who specialize in seniors already do that. So there's, we have certifications in seniors and aging in place certifications specifically for seniors who do that. I think it's a great tool and arsenal. And I think that's if it were me, and that's one of the things that was part of my toolbox, was having that arsenal of being able to have that conversation about aging in place with seniors, decluttering, home reorganization. Those are extra services that you can, independently charge with, as a real estate professional.
Okay. Has Handle Home Solutions opened up any kind of partnerships or worked with local realtors or anything like that with anything? Or is that in the future plans?
That's in the future. That's in the future plans. So we know that since we know the home so well, since we have all the maintenance records, we're basically keeping medical records for the house, since we are monitoring the human in the home, and we have a complete data, a complete dashboard of that. Then we could do two things. We can refer out to a real estate agent. We could buy it in our real estate portfolio, or we can refer it out to an assisted living or a skilled nursing facility. So we already have partnerships with the skilled nursing facilities and the home health care agencies. That's just not what we do. We're not medical based or nursing or clinical care based. But yes, everybody. Yeah, that's what it works. Yeah.
That's good. So give me the quick rundown. What is it exactly that you do? I call you up, I saw your ad, and I'm like, hey, my mom is 86 and she needs some help. We want to keep her in a house where she's happy and comfortable. What are you offering to do for me?
Sure. The very first thing that we always start off with is what we call our home assessment. That home assessment, or what we call, and it depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming out of a hospital, we call it our safety home return program. But with our home assessment, we are looking to do a couple different things. The first thing is to do a walkthrough of the home. So we're walking through from the exterior part of the home. We're looking for what I told you, those risk corridors, those injury zones, etc. We're looking for deferred maintenance, all that. We're also then looking at and measuring, like I said, the cognitive ability of the human. So that part. So the things that we, like and then the standardized intervention categories of fall prevention, mobility, the environmental safety, your daily living support. Do you have family here in the area, or do you have friends in the area? And then the support system is strengthening. How can we support this person staying in the home? So that's what happens first is obviously the assessments. Then we provide a report, and based off that report, you have a score, right? So you give you a home health score, again, based on those categories. And those things we say, okay, what are the things that must be fixed immediately? What are the recommended things? And then what are just the lifestyle things that we could do to enhance the life on that? So that's the second part of it after they get the report. And then we have one of our home handlers come in, and they start the actual work. They start making the changes and again, what we know about this, seniors don't like a lot of people in their home, and they don't always appreciate.
Don't I know that?
And they don't appreciate the changes that need to be done. But so if we start with things like, we're going to install safety grab bars. We're going to replace the hallway lighting. We're going to remove the loose rug so you don't trip. We're going to get all the expired food out of your house, right? Just those kind of things. And then we start, and like we said, and then again, and it's a monthly, like we have like a monthly membership so that people can, our annual memberships, that people can we can walk them through in hopes of getting that risk score up, higher, so that they have a likelihood, because the scores indicate the likelihood of them staying in their home, or the probability in their home staying in their home over the next 12 to 24 months. So that's what it looks like when we walk you through the home assessment, the immediate fixes that help get the score up, and then the medium and long-term goals of getting those scores up so that they can stay in their home. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so you said that you kind of have a partner to help in every aspect, right? So if it's the maintenance they need around the house, you connect them with the vendors to do that.
Yeah.
If they need medical or something, you connect them with that. Or if
Yeah.
they've advanced to the stage where maybe it's time to consider going into someplace else, you also can connect them with that, right?
Correct.
So you can cover all the bases pretty much.
Correct. Correct. We do that, and then we love this. This is our latest venture, like you talked about discharge. So if you've had a surgery, so we have what I told you, our safe return home program. So if you had a surgery or a heart attack or a stroke or cancer or some kind of hospitalization, once you get discharged from the home, the most critical point of when you return home is that 0 to 30 days. Because people always go, you hear these words like the family's like relieved. Mom can go home, but what is mom going home to? And mom, when mom gets home, she's been in a rehab hospital. She's had surgery, or dad. What is the home environment like? Can they shower? Is the house set up for them? Is the bed height high enough? Now that they've had a hip surgery, they can't walk up that little elevated step. Are there thresholds door thresholds that keep them from slipping and falling? All of the, like, are there lighting? Where's the medication station, so that in the emergency home binder that tells us all their information about the house, passwords, all those things. So somebody has to come in, and so what we do is we set up on day 0. We come in and we set up the entire home. It's kind of like when a mom comes home. When a mom comes with a new baby, you got to go back and you got to baby proof
Right.
the house. You got to do. So we senior proof the house. So we come through, make sure the bed height is the right height, that the pathways are clear for them to come in and out of the house, that there's food in the refrigerator that sustain them. All of those things that are important for the next 30 days, because daughter has to go back to work, son-in-law has to go back to work, and we've got to have a system in place so that they don't have those readmissions. Because every time they go back in the hospital for readmissions, it's 20, 30, $40,000
Yeah,
of people, and people lose their confidence too, because now they've lost their confidence to go back in the home, which should be the safest place in the world for them to be.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, devil's advocate, a senior on a fixed income. Oh, this is too costly. I can't afford to pay for this monthly service, blah, blah, blah. So what's the cost of not doing this? If the senior's in the house and, the wood is rotting and, there's water, faucets leaking and all this, the smoke detectors don't work. Like over time, what is the cost of not addressing these issues when early on,
Right.
in your estimation?
Right, in my estimation. So this is when people, and we obviously I'm sensitive to that, and we're sensitive to that. However, the data shows over and over, like, yes, our home is the most expensive asset, and so are our bodies. So like that $50 leak now turns into a $15,000 water and mold remediation, because you didn't have somebody coming in and checking those over time. So think of that cost. Then we have a slip and fall, a simple rug that's a $50 rug that's on the floor, that's peeled up. You have a slip and fall or a tripping hazard. That now you've got a $40,000 hip replacement, right? And then the worst of the worst, let's just go there, is that you decide to prematurely, because you're being reactive instead of responsive and proactive. The reactions cost, because the whole family panics because you've tripped, or you left the stove on or something and had a small house fire. Everybody responds and prematurely pushes you into assisted living, because you didn't have a system set up in place. Now you're paying $54,000 to $90,000 a year, and you're taking the wealth out of your family, because that money that could have been in the stock market or still been in a money market account or something like that, you're robbing your family of wealth. So when we really look at it, what these services cost is a fraction. And more than anything, and let's throw money aside, it's peace of mind, independence, and dignity. That's priceless. And that's the thing that I've learned more than anything by doing this, is that the money doesn't matter. You just can't afford not to do this for yourself and your family. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, I can understand that 100% for sure. So, if someone is listening to us right now and they're like, hey, this sounds like the situation that I'm in, like, what would be the first step? Now, obviously, you guys are located in Houston. Is this something that's going to expand beyond that market? What are your plans for the company future wise? And if people are interested in learning more about this, what should they be doing? What would be the first step to take?
The first step is what I'd say, do the basics, like what we talked about earlier in the show, is just start with a safety checklist. And like I said, I'll be glad to leave, we'll get it for everybody. It's a safety checklist. And that's just going through doing a 60-second walk through 60 seconds, looking at, does my mom and dad or auntie or uncle, have these things in the house? Do they have grab bars? Do they have good lighting? Do they have all these things, right? Do they have an emergency plan? Look at that, like that. And if they don't have those things, then get with someone who can, right? Who can help fill those gaps. And then the second part is having a conversation, right? Just having the conversation saying, hey, these are the things I'm noticing. And the third is to get professional help. Yes, we're located in Houston. Most of our people, what we found out, are actually coming out of the greater Houston area. And so our plans are to expand pretty quickly. We're looking at JV partnerships around the country, real estate professionals that we want to do joint venture partnerships with, because I think real estate agents have a great vision for how homes should work and operate. So we're looking at doing some partnerships with some real estate companies. So that's what I suggest first, is like, again, starting with the basics. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And so with all that, you've met a lot of people, you've had tons of conversations, you've done tons of research on this, but at the end of the day, what have you learned? You touched on it a little bit earlier when you said about, the difference when someone's living in unassisted living versus in their own home. What is that word home? Has the definition of that changed for you at all? What does it mean? How do you define it now, and its importance to just the human dignity that we have in the society as we live now? Like, have you changed your perspective on what it means to talk about my home, or what a home means to somebody?
Yeah. Coming from, like we said, being 22 years in the real estate business, home is not just the structure. It's not a building. Home is not even an idea. It's actually, like I said, home is a culmination of who we are, how we live, the people that love us, and it's actual part of, it's integral to us living a successful life. I mean, I think that it's changed in so many ways for me, that I've seen, home is where you are mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. I think that's the best way to say what home is.
Yeah, it'd be kind of tough to reproduce that somewhere outside of there, right?
Yeah,
Replicate it.
it's
Yeah,
replicated.
that's awesome. And like I said, living through this situation right now personally, I'm glad that you're doing this. I'm glad that you've put the work in and the research in to see, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you or learn more about Handled Home Solutions?
Sure. They can go to handledhomesolutions.com. They can do Handled Home Official on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel where we have I think we're at close to 40 videos. So if you just want to learn about what aging in place is, I talk a lot about how we, created the concept of Handled Home Solutions because of how Japan, this came from how the Japanese treat their seniors versus how we treat our seniors in the United States. And so what that means, and there's also opportunities to understand, like I said, the true cost versus the false cost of what it means to age in place, and what, like I said, these choices that we've been given in the media about, you have to, you stay at home versus going to assisted living or skilled nursing facility. I think there's a third option, and there's a better option for us in the country. And again, we've got to have these uncomfortable conversations. Have to.
It's
Have to.
time.
Yeah.
Those of us that are of a certain age know that
Yeah.
it's already happened. If it hasn't, it's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
got to be
we're
ready.
gonna be the clients. A little bit of this is selfish. In 20 years, we're gonna be we're gonna be our parents, right?
Yes,
And
we'll be
so,
right there. Are you listening, son?
yeah, right, exactly. We're gonna be the client, right? So I was like,
All right. So in many ways, this is a good exercise for us, for people to
right,
prepare for what's going to happen to
yeah,
themselves, right? Not just to look out for your parents, but to lay the foundation for what you need to do. And I know we're about to wrap, but you touched on it a little bit. Like, how much of this is in American culture, you mentioned like how the Japanese do, and I know I'm from Caribbean background,
Right,
and
right,
the
right,
family that, and it's just normal that it would be abnormal to not take care of the elderly
right,
within the family unit. But in
right,
American culture, that has not been the case. It has been like, hey, ship mom off to the nursing home for the most part. So do you see that changing now, and is it changing as a mindset, or is it just changing because of out of financial necessity that people have to find a different way because it's so costly?
I
What
think
what
it's
what has been your experience looking at the bigger picture there?
Yeah, I think it's both. We watch, us in real estate, we watch multi-generational living. So we watch two, three generations living in households now, right? And so it's always been common with other, like you said, other cultures that the kids and adults and parents have always lived, they've always coexisted. I think there's, like you said, there's a financial part of it. And then I think there's also a part of it where we, like I said, we've got a lot of immigrants who've come into this country, from the Caribbean and from, Latin America and the Middle East who have brought, who have relatives here. And so they understand that while they bring their cultures in, but they also have the demands of America, which is, like I said, working, taking care of their existing kids and their and their adult children, and they don't have as much of a support system and structure. And so that's why we're having to build these support systems and infrastructure that is not just the home, but we also have to build like I said, the complete system. So this is going to be the answer to the silver tsunami. This is what it is. This is what it is. This is welcome to the new America. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll all be here to see it, hopefully. So
Yeah.
thank you, Fee Gentry, for being my smart person in real estate today. As I say, my slogan is always endeavor to never be the smartest person in the room. So thank you for bringing your smarts and your expertise to teach us about this topic, this very important topic that, like I said, many of us are living in real time right now. So I appreciate you being here. And those of you that want to connect with Fee, as you said, you can go to her website. We'll put that stuff on the screen for you to connect with Handle Home Solutions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future for you, for the company, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.